Right now, somewhere on TikTok, there are teenagers and young adults deliberately smashing and punching their own faces with hard objects. Not as a joke, not as a stunt, but because an influencer told them it would make them more attractive. They call it bone smashing, the idea that repeatedly striking your face can create tiny fractures that somehow reshape your bones and sharpen your features. There is no medical evidence supporting this. Doctors warn it can cause permanent damage, and yet millions of people have seen it promoted online as a shortcut to beauty. So how did a fringe, dangerous idea like this become mainstream content? Who was behind it? And how did a movement built on self-improvement end up encouraging people to hurt themselves for validation? This is the story of Looksmaxxing, viral influence, and what happens when online advice goes too far. The internet has a way of turning something as simple as a tweak to your appearance into a full cultural movement. Between fleeting viral dances and soundbite trends, a quieter, darker subculture has been crawling out of fringe corners and into millions of feeds. One that hinges on insecurity, identity, and the promise that looks alone can transform your life. What started as harmless grooming advice has mutated into something more intense, more critical, and in some corners, dangerously unregulated. And in the middle of it all stands one of the most controversial figures in social media today, an influencer known only by a screen name, whose rise, controversies, and real-world consequences reveal how social platforms can reshape ideas and the people who champion them. Today, we're unpacking the story of Looksmaxxing on TikTok, the influencer known as CLAVICULAR, his meteoric rise and polarizing moment in the spotlight, and what this all says about the internet's power to amplify both self-improvement and self-destruction. Let's begin by defining exactly what Looksmaxxing is. The term itself didn't start on TikTok. It comes from online forums rooted in the broader manosphere, communities where discussions about male identity, dating, and attractiveness have evolved over years. In its simplest surface form, Looksmaxxing refers to efforts and practices aimed at improving physical appearance. Think hairstyling, weight training, skincare routines, basics you'll find in any self-care guide. But beneath the surface, especially in some corners of the internet, the definitions get more extreme. Maxing your looks becomes a near ideological pursuit, achieving peak appearance not just for personal confidence, but as a measure of social worth. And that's where the controversy begins. By the early 2020s, Looksmaxxing spread beyond niche forums into mainstream TikTok culture. Short clips dissecting facial features, critiquing jawlines, comparing clavicle width, rating attractiveness. These formats became strangely compelling, especially to young men who might already feel overlooked or insecure. Instead of casual self-care, these videos often framed physical appearance as the only gateway to social success or validation. Critics, including psychologists and social commentators, have argued that this shift was more than aesthetic. It was psychological. Rather than empowering, some Looksmaxxing content leveraged insecurity, telling viewers that unless they constantly improve, they would be left behind. This started in the broader internet ecosystem, often linked back to communities like incel forums, where self-worth is disproportionately tied to genetics and appearance, and trickled down into TikTok trends that seemed harmless at first. Into this online environment stepped a figure who would become one of the most polarizing faces, or rather voices, of the movement, CLAVICULAR. Born Braden Peters in late 2005, CLAVICULAR is an American social media influencer who initially joined platforms like TikTok in the early 2020s with typical trending content, but his persona took a dramatic turn as he began focusing almost exclusively on Looksmaxxing. His name, CLAVICULAR, derived from a fixation on the clavicle as a symbol of aesthetic ideals, sharp collarbones, lean physique, and angular features. This branding was more than cosmetic, it became an identity. On live streaming platforms like Kick and TikTok, he dissected facial structures, taught followers how to mog, a slang term meaning to outclass someone in appearance, and promoted routines pitched as maximizing one's attractiveness. What set CLAVICULAR apart from typical self-help influencers was not just his focus on looks, but the intensity and methods he advocated. His approach was unapologetically extreme, with him sometimes discussing controversial practices, from chemical substances to body-altering procedures, in ways that blurred ethical lines. This was not the usual content you'd find on a lifestyle channel. By 2025, CLAVICULAR's reach had grown into the hundreds of thousands. His TikTok handle amassed significant followers, while his Kick live streams brought even bigger audiences. What was initially just niche commentary morphed into a personality-driven brand, one that capitalized on shock, confidence-boosting rhetoric, and relentless self-focus. But the turning point for CLAVICULAR The moment that transformed him from an internet trend maker into a controversial internet figure didn't come from grooming tips. It came from an event that spiraled into both ethical scrutiny and public outrage. In late 2025, a live stream clip went viral across platforms where Clavicular performed a cosmetic injection on someone identified as his girlfriend, who was under the age of 18 at that time. According to multiple reports, this was not a simple aesthetic choice. It was framed on stream as part of this self-improvement journey. This incident drew immediate and sharp criticism. Healthcare professionals, commentators, and casual viewers alike were alarmed, not just because of the act itself, but because it was presented casually on a live stream. The ethical implications were clear. Injecting substances into another person, especially a minor, veers into medical regulation territory and raises serious questions about consent, influence, and responsibility. In many ways, this moment crystallized the broader problem critics had been pointing out for some time. When influencers blur the line between advice and unregulated experimentation, real people can be put at risk. Around the same time, Clavicular's content and personal persona became controversial for other reasons too. Clips circulated of him promoting or joking about substance use, including stimulant drugs touted for weight loss, and discussing enhancements that mainstream medical experts would not recommend. Whether or not these actions produced any long-term physical change for followers, they thrust him into a spotlight that few self-help influencers ever reach, but not in the way he may have wanted. Critics accused his content of normalizing dangerous practices, pushing unattainable standards, and glamorizing risky alterations. They pointed out that framing unproven aesthetics as objective science was not only irresponsible, but potentially harmful, especially to a young audience predisposed to impressionable influences. Across social platforms, debates raged about the responsibilities of influencers. On Reddit communities, users discussed whether his approach was grift, posturing, or genuine, and what it said about broader male insecurity in online culture. There were also more extreme voices, some hostile and unkind, but that reflects a broader internet trend where divisive figures attract equally divisive reactions. The point remains. His online persona was no longer just about looksmaxxing. It was a flashpoint in debates about social media influence, ethics, and youth culture. Then came his most widely reported real-world encounter with law enforcement, unrelated directly to the Looksmaxxing discourse, but undeniably tied to his online persona and off-platform behavior. In February 2026, Clavicular was arrested in Arizona after reportedly using a forged ID to enter a nightclub. Authorities said he was found in possession of prescription-only pills at the time, leading to felony charges and a substantial bond. This incident once again sent shockwaves across social platforms. Some of his supporters criticized the charges as unfair or blown out of proportion. Others saw it as another piece of a pattern that raised questions about how social media fame intersects with accountability in real life. At the same time, there were broader online discussions about another widely shared clip, one showing Clavicular allegedly running over a man with his Cybertruck during a live stream. These videos circulated rapidly across TikTok, X, Reddit, and other platforms, often without context. Some outlets later reported that police had not filed criminal charges in relation to that event, leading to confusion and conflicting narratives. What has been consistently verified is this. Clavicular's influence, both content and controversies, sparked intense debate about how far is too far when it comes to self-brand building on social media. What has been consistently verified is this. Clavicular's influence, both content and controversies, sparked intense debate about how far is too far when it comes to self-brand building on social media. Clav is a creator who's constantly surrounded by attention. Every weekend, new faces, new parties, and new people who want to be close to someone with a platform. One night, he collabs with another creator, someone who's been online since they were young, someone who grew up in front of millions of strangers, Jenny Porch. They talk and laugh and end up in the same car afterward. On the drive back, half joking, half performing for the stream, he makes a comment. So, who do you think would win in a fight? You or my girlfriend? Everyone laughs. It sounds like nothing, just another throwaway line. But later, it doesn't feel so harmless. When they arrive, his girlfriend is already there. Suddenly, it explodes. His girlfriend starts yelling, accusing, pointing fingers, not about anything specific, just anger, jealousy, insecurity spilling out in real time. There are other people in the room, other girls, other friends, but for some reason, all the focus lands on Jenny. Voices get louder, insults start flying, and before anyone really understands what's happening, It turns physical. A shove, a swing, a stumble, all from Clav's girlfriend. A bodyguard moves forward to step in, but Clav puts out his arm, not to stop the fight, but to stop the person who could stop it. He laughs. The fight gets messier. Jenny is clearly trying to back away, just trying to protect herself. And in the chaos, there's a moment, a split second, where the camera catches him holding her wrists, not pulling her away, not separating them, holding her in place, while his girlfriend's punches land. On Jenny's face, this guy with a massive platform that people look up to has just assisted and allegedly set up an assault against a young woman. How long will people walk by and let this happen? So what can we learn from this entire arc? From the rise of Looksmaxxing on TikTok, through the ascent and controversy surrounding CLAVICULAR, to the conversations about accountability and influence. First, trends that start as harmless can morph into something far more impactful when personalities attach themselves to them. Looksmaxxing didn't start with CLAVICULAR, but his amplification of the trend and his often extreme presentation helped catapult it into a mainstream discourse. Second, the line between self-improvement and obsession can be blurry online. Third, influencers are not outside the consequences of the real world. What happens online doesn't stay online. Laws, social norms, and ethics still apply. Thanks for watching. If you found this investigation valuable, consider subscribing to Vibe Thread for more balanced, deep dives into internet culture and the real-world consequences behind the headlines.